to. And I'm like, damn it. Have we been putting our daughter in a mask like for no fucking reason this whole time? So call these people about, I want to talk to somebody about your COVID policy. And, oh yeah, that's me. I can help. I was like, okay, well, what is it? I mean, like, it says on your site that, you know, gymnasts on the floor don't necessarily have to wear a mask, but my wife has the impression that our daughter does. She's 3 years old. She's like, oh, that's a mistake on the website. Thank you for letting me know that. I'm going to let our webmaster know and we'll get that fixed. And I'm like, so are you saying it is required to participate in your classes to wear a mask? That's a requirement. And she's like, well, are you opposed to wearing a mask? Like, and I'm like, well, if you're asking me, yes, I think it's actually child abuse. And so that kind of got their attention. And then the owner reached out, and it was very illustrative of what's going on, speaking of China, because, you know, she was disturbed that I said it was child abuse. And she's like, well, if you think we're abusing your child, you know, we might not be the right place for you. And I was like, let me be clear. I think the policy in general is child abuse. I'm not saying you are abusing my child by requiring it. I'm saying, you know, me and my wife are guilty of child abuse because we told our daughter that, you know, she had to wear it to participate. And I should have called you months ago to have this conversation. And that's my bad. But, you know, I'm trying to be understanding. You know, you have to run your business, and the state is like
draconian,
is coming after you if you don't follow. Well, now the state has said they don't have to wear it, and that's when she informed me, oh well, we are governed like a school because we have young children, and the schools, that mandate has not lifted. And so I'm following the state, and I'm like, oh my God, this is even worse than I thought. But the thing that ties back to China is, you know, I got into more of a personal discussion with this lady, and she was like, you know, I have my daughter lives in Taiwan, and, you know, they all wear masks over there, and it's just kind of part of their culture. And, you know, I feel like in America, you know, we have a culture where we just feel entitled to do whatever we want. And maybe it'll get like it is over there where everybody just...
Oh, my God.
And I said, well, ma'am, that's the difference between us and China, is we can do what we want. And that's what it comes down to, is if you want to wear a mask, go for it. What does that have to do with me? Why do I have to wear a mask for you?
Right.
And that's what she was essentially saying, is it's because people are afraid. People are afraid, and I don't want to scare people off because your daughter's not wearing a mask. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I can't be responsible for other people's emotions over that.
Right.
That's not my job.
Right. Well, it's the threshold whereby tolerance of the intolerable is another form of tyranny, you know, and it leads to self-sabotage within the society. And it's, in a way, it's almost like, I mean, you know, it's not just China, of course,
Right.
but you know, there's certainly a big player. And what all this kind of adds up to is, if the United States basically just keeps kind of going along with these absurdist intrusions, we're going to become a penal colony of China. And, you know, it won't be necessarily Chinese officials giving the orders. It'll be, you know, very white-looking fellows giving the orders. And us still failing to realize the enemy within, going along with that too. So, you know, if you put two and two together, you start to see, okay, we are basically being Bolshevik 5 times harder than 100 years ago with this stuff now. And that's why I call it the Bolshevik virus, because I think that is an accurate description of the psychological operation that is commencing. And the whole UFO things, man, that is a massive limited hangout operation, in my opinion, because the real, quote unquote aliens we need to be worried about look just like us, and they feign the same interests, and they say that they're just doing this, that, and the other for their families. But the whole migrant crisis at the border, that compounded with just the complete takeover of all the institutions of power in the courts, and the kangaroo banana republic farce that we're sort of living in, this sort of vicious tyrannical farce of Lovecraftian Twilight Zone proportions, has just it is in this boa constrictor phase of like appearing as though there's some sort of subsiding happening. But as we are all familiar with the phrase, appearances can be deceiving. It appears that this kind of stuff is subsiding, but in reality, they're just preparing for the next phase. And I think the next phase is taking the pandemic online. They're going to keep cyber attacking stuff, disrupting the supply lines, and
self-sabotaging.
And in a way, when you're an actor that constantly spews lies, that's what hypocrisy leads to, is self-sabotage. Is you lose sight of even who you are and what the play you're acting in even is. And so that everything becomes an act of duplicity. And it's like that is the sort of psychological operation pertaining to Bolshevism that I'm talking about, is this like self-sabotaging schizophrenic duplicity spell that has kind of befallen, and it is just especially I would say it's especially targeted at so-called Western influenced countries, really just any civilization that has a history of excellence. Wherever there's excellence, I mean, you see all of it going down and being weaponized in India. All the cultural and spiritual and written kind of wisdom tradition excellence that comes out of there. That's a society that is on the chopping block. And to a great extent, a lot of this is externalized and self-replicating tyranny too, because in China, that population has been under hardcore austerity for decades, amidst all of this, glimmering and glamorous infrastructural updating. And so it's almost like North Korea on steroids, but they've gotten to a level of, huge trillions of dollars worth of leverage within the global economy, and they're giving more. You could say they're arguably giving more tables or scraps from the table to their population, and they're not self-sabotaging as much, because it's almost like they've trauma bonded their population to such an extent that their competition has to be subjugated to the same extent.
Well, it's actually frightful what an autocratic system can do when it has a collectivist thinking population.